afternoon, everyone. So once again, welcome to the last session
Afternoon, ma'am.
of the webinar. So I hope you're still doing good there. Okay lang?
Yes.
Okay, so save the best for last, no? So before we start with this last session, may I introduce to you our last
Mute ko.
So I'm going to mute all now so we could concentrate on listening. I will mute all your microphones. Okay, so let me introduce first our speaker for this session. Our last speaker is a multi-awarded Filipino master teacher, speaker and researcher from Pampanga, Philippines. He is a senior high school master teacher at San Matias National High School, Schools Division Office of Pampanga, Region 3. He is a Dangal ng Bayan awardee and also a recipient of Asian Achiever Award 2019, Gawad Pat National Award 2019, Outstanding Research Advocate of the Philippines Award 2019, and Most Outstanding Teacher Award in 2018. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Sir Leonilo Basas Capulso. A round of applause, please. Okay, sir.
Hello everyone, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, thank you Ma'am Venus for the introduction. Thank you for staying behind. And now I'll be sharing to you my screen. Okay, so the topic that was given to me by Ma'am Venus is the new normal in education. So, okay. At the moment, I am affiliated with different research organizations as mentioned and some educational organization that eventually lead me to putting all these thoughts together and eventually making a difference just like Ma'am Venus is doing. So for this session, we only have 3 objectives. First, let's try to discuss the new normal in the phenomenon or the new normal phenomenon in education, particularly in basic education. Second, let's try to identify what are the challenges posed by this new normal in the basic education. And then towards the last part, let's try to propose some possible actions in order that we need to undertake in the post-pandemic scenario. So to start with, okay, what are the new normal that we've been experiencing so far? So maybe you are one with me, especially those who are Catholics, those who are Christians, that we miss coming to church and we are now familiar with the new normal of going to mass online, as you can see on the screen. Believers and the same night are also doing their distancing and even Zoom conferencing, trying to discuss some bills to becoming laws of the land. And in our community, we have this barangay pass that we have to surrender to the authorities whenever we want to buy some errands. But what's the common denominator among those phenomena that I have presented to you? Basically, this is because of the corona disease 2019 outbreak. And this eventually impact educational system that led us to having the new normal in education. As of May 6, 2020, our country has 10,004 confirmed cases, 1,506 recovered patients, and 658 deaths cases. That is against 3.74 million in the world and 263,000 deaths cases. That is the normal now because of the pandemic. In April 17, 2020, in Manila Bulletin, DepEd says it's preparing for the new normal in education amid the COVID-19 situation. And this is the new normal that we will be discussing now in the basic education, particularly in government schools. According to Mr. George Ching in the Philippine Daily Inquirer in April 28, he mentioned that if we have to base the enrollment of the previous school year, we are expecting 27 million students to enroll for school year 2020-2021. Lately, just few days ago, the Department of Education has made its official statement as to the opening of classes, and it was slated on August 24, 2020. And I'll try to identify basic points that's enumerated in this pronouncement. One, according to the pronouncement, ang mga public school teaching and non-teaching personnel ay magre-report na either online or physically simula June 1, 2020. That's the first point. Second, ihinahanda na ang mga self-learning kits and printed materials para sa mga estudyanteng walang internet access. If you are listening earlier to Sir Suji, this is one of the problems not only in our country but even in the depressed area when internet connection is very scarce. But the Department of Education is trying to have this alternative to those places with have a very low
Suraga pa program sa may imo ng grupo namin sa may gitano. Program na diyan.
Tumaan yung program?
Program. Hindi pa ng ulang ko sabi kapag kasi kawan ko. Pero kung mga naglalaba lang, mga tampong yan. Hindi lang, ang lang na.
Layo?
Verify kaya po sagli kim Pampanga nung may putut in kuryente ka rin. Das hindi po kasi yung power.
What basically or where are this pronouncement coming from? According to the Department of Education Central Office, DepEd has what they call the Learning Continuity Plan, which will be in effect in August 24, 2020. So what is LCP? It is basically the major response and commitment of the department in ensuring the health, safety, and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel in this time of the pandemic, while finding ways for education to continue amidst the crisis for the upcoming school year. Now, let's try to discuss the issues when it comes to this pronouncement. And what are the challenges that we teachers in the department are now facing? Number one, on the reporting on June 1. So DepEd says we have to report starting in June 1, may it be physically coming to school or online. Why? because teachers need to capacitate themselves. So just like what we're doing now through the initiative of Dr. Venus and other private and government institutions, teachers has to be prepared on the different modalities on delivering competencies to students, may it be online or face-to-face. Dr. Abram Abanel on DepEd Information and Communication Services, in his statement in the UNTV in May 1, 2020, he said that the Department of Education is targeting 60 e-books per week. And they have 1,700 trained personnel doing or constructing the e-books. At the same time, there are also 70,000 out of 900,000 teachers like us who are undergoing webinars like this. Also, according to him, all these e-books can be accessed through DepEd websites and commons, free access through Globe and smart mobile phones. However, during the webinar with Yusik Pasqua, as mentioned on the day one by Dr. Venus, there were some concerns which were raised about the use of DepEd Commons. DepEd Commons are not complete. We all know that. In my case, for example, in the senior high school, I'm handling Practical Research 1, Practical Research 2. Not all curriculum guides are made, or shall I say, BLL are complete, and even some instructional materials. According to Yusik Pasqua, some content which are in the DepEd Commons were only links. That means to say, for you to access those links which are not part of the DepEd Common, you really need some loads, cell phone loads. Okay? So that is why in collaboration with Google, with Kuiper, and other private institutions, they committed to collaborate with the Department of Education in order to create content. For example, in the case of Kuiper, they already have a pool of content which maybe in one way or another could contribute to the DepEd Commons in response to this challenge in the access of learning contents. It was also mentioned by Yusek Sevilla in Manila Bulletin in April 30, 2020, that there are also printed materials as alternative and part of the multimodal approach to learning, just like what was mentioned by Sir Suji earlier. There were areas where internet is very hard. They don't even, or they could not even afford to buy a Wi-Fi connection or a Wi-Fi for that matter. So according to DepEd, particularly according to Yusik Sevilla and even Yusik Pasqua, printed materials can also be delivered to houses depending on the different modalities and situation or health situation because of COVID-19. Another point that was mentioned by Yusik Sevilla in Manila Bulletin in April 17 says, another new normal that we have to observe starting school year 2020-2021 is the teacher-student ratio. We used to have 50 students in a classroom or more. When I started in DepEd, I have 120 students. But because of COVID-19, according to Yusik Sevilla, no more 50 students. So that means that you were expecting a smaller number of students in a classroom. This is if face-to-face or classroom-based will pursue. They also suggested for alternating school days or staggered conduct of classes. That means to say, students need not to go to school from Mondays to Fridays. It could have been Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or the other way around. Yusik Pasqua even mentioned of the possibility of students coming to school for only 1 week and the rest will be done at home. Yusik Sevilla also mentioned that before the COVID-19, the minority is now becoming the new normal. What does it mean by minority? Before the COVID-19, there is a very scarce online learning, and this is only available for those who could afford online connections. But now, families are required to subscribe to online learning and other modalities in order to cope with the challenge of the new normal in education. Another point, the role of parents and guardians. I remembered for almost 7 years in the Department of Education because I spent most of my years in the private school for 15 years. It has been a common problem among advisors of calling parents coming to school, especially when students or their children have academic problems or other problems for that matter. Most often than not, parents would only come to school during the last quarter and they started begging to help their children pass. But this time, we cannot anymore compromise that. Because of COVID-19 phenomenon, parents are playing a significant role in the education of their children. According to Yosek Sevilla, the involvement of parents are relevant, parents and guardians for that matter. Because parents should help facilitate on acquiring gadgets, the internet connections, and other materials that will be needed by their children at home. Parents also need to follow up with the school on how learners perform after the online interaction. We have to remember that despite the fact that education now will be done online, that the role of the teachers should never be underestimated. As much as the parents are important, the teachers will be the one to assess, to evaluate how much the students are pacing when it comes to the competency that they are expected to do. There's also a need to ensure success in the implementing of the learning competencies. Parents, since they are new to this, they need also to be oriented. Okay, so how can you imagine what will be the scenario in the first few days of the new normal when parents will come to school and the teachers and the administrators have to orient teachers on how to use gadgets and technology for our online mechanism. Also, according to Yusek Sevilla, this is also the time where parents have to teach children problem-solving skills and preparedness in case of emergency. On the other hand, children are also expected to teach older people on the use of technology because we know well that millennials or zennials are more equipped with using technology than the older people. So that's the dual role of parents and children. Now, what is now the role of the local government units? So the LGU need to align the resources of educational goals within its community to support the ecosystem of students, teachers, and parents. We know well about the CEF funds. No? So maybe the way the CEF will be used can also be realigned according to this new normal. And how is that? So the LGU should assist in the adjustment to the new normal, particularly in homeschooling, parents as teachers training, community internet centers, just like what Sir Suji was saying. No? It could be possible that in a particular community, the LGU will help the school in building up a community center wherein there is a lesser price for internet access. LGU could also become the citizens' watch for education and establish LGU leaders as education champions, according to Mr. Chin. What are the advice that we had from private sectors? From Mr. Edric Mendoza, the chairman of Homeschool Global Learning, in April 30, he said, we need to train parents to become facilitators of learning because of the new normal. Education now are shifting into home-based learning. So he has to differentiate what is homeschooling from home-based learning. When we say home-based learning, it is still the school who is driving the education with the help of the parents, of the guardian. Whereas homeschooling, the parents are the one driving the educational journey of the children in line with the Department of Education. So there's a need to train parents on how to become facilitators of learning, just like teachers when we do it in school. Dr. Dexter Balahadja of the University of the Assumption, he also suggested another way of coping with the new normal. He suggested 8 quality assurance principles, and he acronymed it as SITMATE. He said, there should be safety, empathy, adaptability, technology, measurability, accessibility, trust, and evolution. What is trying to say? Adaptability. Teachers should, old and young, must be able to adapt the new normal. They have to be able to equip themselves with technology. Okay? They must be able to attend webinars. Okay? And educational endeavor should also be measured. So we must have assessment tools. Access, I have mentioning that earlier, trust. Trust refers to the reliability of the mechanism that we're doing. We see to it that we don't compromise some principles and laws in using gadgets, in using applications like the one we're doing. Evolution. Evolution means that we must always be open to the change of possibilities, of paradigms, of pedagogy. Safety. We see to it that children are not being abused, are not being exposed to other elements in online learning. And empathy, of course. At the end of the day, we must always look at the perspective of the heart. As Don Bosco would always say, education is a matter of the heart. That is why it says one of the private sector would always would later on tell us. Actually, I'm about to end, and this is what he's trying to say. Another way of adapting to the new normal. This is from Mr. Jelix Mercader, citing Jason De La Rosa, the founder. He said, to adapt to the new normal, we must be able to adapt or to embrace the 3 A's. First, adapt. We must be able to adapt to the situation. And the situation means that starting this school year, we will be using the multimodal ways of education, as mentioned by Dr. Avenos on the day 1, the different way of approaching education, distance learning. Adapt. We must be able to adapt new ways of addressing teaching learning. And we should not be afraid. There are always technicalities. There are always people to help us. And adept. We must be adept with skills that are required to us in this challenge. In closing, new normal is not just about operating in an environment which is secure, or that secure health of students and transitioning to online modalities. It's not only about online learning. New normal pertains to using technology to increase efficiency in areas with capacity to do so. So there's always have to equate technology with efficiency while empowering learners and communities to create positive learning environment in which students can grow. If we try to go back to the mission vision of DepEd, we know well that our vision is always to create that ideal Filipino citizen. And this is now, we should not compromise that in the presence of the new normal. New normal also means not sacrificing the quality. That is why Yusek Pasqua would say, we will not stop the quality of education. Education will go on despite of all the challenges. But we have to continue to provide equal opportunities. That is why for those who have low internet connection, there are also modalities like printed materials, most especially to the marginalized and vulnerable sectors. And lastly, we have to always remember that new normal is not a one-size-fits-all solution, but one that is dependent on the needs of its learning community. So at the end of the day, it's always go back to para sa bata, para sa bayan. Okay, so with that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc.
Tumudahan sa bata.
Okay, so I guess,
Capulso.
is there any question from the
Ito na
participants?
sa trademark.
May
Negative
question
trademark.
ba, mga ma'am and sir?
Wonderful presentation, Doc.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very substantial and very clear presentation.
Doc Venus,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Roy is with us, the president of SIARD. Hi, Doc Roy.
Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
Hope you all are doing well in this quarantine period.
Okay.
Yes.
Doc Roy, Dr. Venus is also with us. He is the one in charge of the webinar. Dr. Venus is also in the line.
Okay.
Hello,
So,
sir.
good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Good afternoon,
Hello.
everyone.
Good afternoon.
Basically, I am the founder and chairman of an academic and research institution, the South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development. Capulso is also in our advisory board list, and we are working throughout an world basis, mostly for skill development and entrepreneurship development program. And another point is the for practicing SDGs. So you are all from Philippines? Are you all from Philippines?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So you are all become my friends because Capulso is quite close to me, and we have already worked on skill development related activities through operating courses, training programs, workshops. And I will request all of you please go to our website. And regarding this COVID-19 situation, we have already planned to do something academic activities through our digital learning platform. Because we have already developed our digital learning platform, we have already developed our hello.
Hello.
Sorry. Hello.
Doc, I
audible?
think there, Doc Roy, I think there is some question for a while.
Am I audible?
Yes, Doc Roy. Doc Roy, there are just some questions to the presentations earlier, I think. I'll just get back to you in a while.
Okay, okay.
Doc Venus, I think there are some...
Okay. Sige, any question, ma'am or sir? You can unmute your microphone if you have questions for Sir Leonilo. Hello? I think they don't have question anymore. So please continue, Sir Roy. Hello?